Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. This time it is the final round of the RAF F1 24 Esports Championship Season 2, where we are going to be taken to the streets of the Australian track of Albert Park, I believe it is. Yes, there we go. But here we go then, the track today for the final round. 3.27 miles with 14 corners, 5 to the left and 9 to the right. This track, involving 4 DRS zones, can provide plenty of overtaking opportunities for all of our drivers. If you think back to 2022, where they introduced the 4th DRS zone and the reconfiguration of the track, where turns at 9 and 10 were, but now they are not. Definitely going to be in play today. And these drivers, the battle for the championship is on today. And as always, a hot lap on board with the guy who's no longer in F1, the honey badger himself, Daniel Ricciardo, down the start finish straight, over to left hand side, brake just as the black box appears, turns into turn 1, avoid the track limits and the grass on the exit of turn 2, picking up the first of the DRS zones, all the way to left hand side now, in towards turn number 3, brake at the black board, keep the car tucked in, over to the right hand side, keep the apex on the left and avoid the riding too much of the curb on the exit to the right, all the way flat now through turn 5, down towards 6, keep the car as straight as you can, dab of the brakes into 5th gear, hooks it in, again watch the gravel on the exit, and from here on out it is foot to the floor all the way round turn 8, where we saw in season 1 a nice little incident between Crow and Tomo, all the way before we get to the high speed chicane, DRS wide open, over to the right hand side, brake just 70 meters, down 1 gear, down another gear, keep your foot into it, watch the gravel on the exit of turn 10, picking up the DRS immediately from there. In towards now 11, left hand side, 70 meters, corner tightened up, now more of a 90-degree corner following the track change. Now only a couple more corners to go, dab of the brakes, over to the left, onto the right hand side now, in towards turn 13, there they go, kick over to the left and watch the throttle and the power on the exit. Hard to get traction out of turn 14, and picking up the DRS and across the start finish, the drivers will go. And that is the lap of dreams here. It might help if I didn't turn my audio off. The final race in the championship here in Australia, which sees Tank and TheAsset battling for the championship. We delayed the race slightly due to slight technical issues, where we are still waiting for Asset to be able to join due to a strict or a moderate LAN connection, which isn't boding too well. So at this point, as it stands, Tank will take the championship come the end, or come the checkered flag in the Grand Prix, unless Asset is able to rejoin during qualifying, as we are waiting for another driver to join as well. But again, technical difficulties on their halves. I do apologise if the stream does seem a little bit laggy. I thought I'd fix it, but apparently not. So slightly confused as to the reason why, but we will roll with it on the quality. I guess I don't think the game is liking things at the moment. I think I had a couple of issues where files were not being validated correctly just before the last race in Abu Dhabi, but we'll do what we can. But I hope everyone is doing well here on Monday, final race of the season. The champion will be crowned, as we do have it looks like the Flash able now to reconnect into the lobby. Chance of safety cars possible around here, 67% chance of safety cars around Melbourne, so we could see something like that one. Pit stops around about 20 seconds, just shy of 20 seconds, and the track being relatively flat, but is technically classed as a street circuit. So currently, though, you just have my lovely voice to listen to, and hopefully we can get George in at some point during full commentary. But unfortunately, he has he's on the late shift in work, so he may be a little bit late. But now that we've had a bit of a delay, he might be able to join in. But the drivers, though, taking to the track for the first time. BomberBrown has new internet and apparently not liking the game, which is an interesting one for that one. But George is the first car out on track. GeorgeBL in the McLaren, going through the high-speed section. I did actually speak to George earlier today, and he's had 0 practice on the track. Well, obviously because of work, and I think he came on. He probably had a little bit of practice, And now here we go. Unsure what kind of setup he has got on the McLaren. But this track is a low downforce circuit, definitely for the high-speed natures, and the start-finish straights. Top speeds, you're probably seeing around about 202 miles an hour as we jump on board with George. There he is, braking 70 meters, gets the car hooked in actually very nicely into turn 1, keeps it nice and smooth to turn 2, gets a bit of a distant tow there from the Ferrari of Crow. In towards turn 3, car stopped on track in the middle. That must have been that's a huge disconnection moment as Crow gets out of the way. This is going to affect George's lap as we'll try and get some telemetry on the screen if I can find it. There we go. So George will be the pace setter for the Grand Prix to start off with as he now goes down the long, slightly twisty section of 8 down to 9. DRS wide open, gives an extra 12 miles an hour around here, or 12 kilometers an hour, should I say, into the high-speed chicane. He goes, keeps it within track limits, just about, making sure that that wheel stays within the the yellow line here in Australia. In towards now turn 11, down to 12, slight lift, 5th gear. Too much to the curve, gets a little bit of a wobbly moment. Here towards the final corner, slight lock up, inside left, under rotation. 4th gear, does manage to keep it planted, so maybe a little bit more downforce. Keeps the car as straight as he can, goes it down the pit wall. And there you go, 1:18 is the benchmark time for the final Grand Prix of the season, or of season 2, as there is an issue there with BomberBrown with the disconnection. We'll try and see who is next on track. I believe it may be the Alpine of the Flash down in P10 at the moment. He'll be the next car to start their lap. Golf Maniac is just following suit, so gets a little bit of the dirty air, not too much, but enough to keep going down the start finish. It's a 1:21, but that's enough to get on the board. It's a banker lap at least, as now we just have currently out making laps, or lap times, we say, it's Crow and the Flash. Crow coming down to the high speed chicane of 9 and 10. Over to the right hand side, just a brake just after the board, throws the car in, watch the understeer. Slow moving McLaren off track, gets out of the way, but nice and smooth through the chicane in towards outer turn 11. Misses the apex slightly, uses all the curb. This is where we saw Max Verstappen go off in the F1 not too long ago, should I say, during the tricky conditions, followed by both the McLarens going off the next corner down. Maybe those start finish straight for the Ferrari of Crow. Where's this going to set that time? 1:17.5, almost a second quicker than George, who is in the pits. Tomo in the McLaren, though, has invalidated their lap time, so we'll have to either box for a new set of tyres or save enough fuel to push or go for the next lap. But it looks like he isn't saving. He's pushing to get back into the pits as quick as they can, so they can get lap time on the board. Ben Tomlin also in the same situation. You can see the light flashing on the back of the Alpine. They are harvesting as they are going round, so that's an aborted lap from Ben, as Big Melt, though, is on a flying lap at the moment. Battery down to about 8%. Careful not to derate come the end of the lap, which means that you have no more energy left to use, and hits the inside of that curb and sends the car flying, just hooked to the front right of the car. That'll be an aborted lap for that, I am sure, and into the pits they go. And it looked like Big Melt was on a decent lap there, but just catching too much of the inside curb, similar to what you have in Hungary, what we like to call cake or death. If you touch it, you survive, you get cake. If you don't, it's an auto spin curb and you'll be facing the wrong direction, causing the spin into the wall in Hungary, which is not ideal. So Tomo is on another push lap. Let's see what they can do now. 11 minutes 50, just under 12 minutes left here in qualifying in Albert Park. There's too many ins in that sentence, I don't like that one. But into the high-speed chicane in Melbourne, gets it nicely, but then just overcooks it, goes in a little bit too quick and picks up the invalidation on the exit of turn 10. We've seen it happen before in the actual Formula 1. We've seen crashes happen at that point in the track. The cars get onto the gravel. I believe Alex Albon has been one. Oliver Behrman this year. Also, I believe, hit the gravel and then ended up into the barrier. So that would be Tomo into the pits as the only driver now on track on an outlap is AtomicTristan in the Haas. The Haas team needing, I believe it's 3 points in the Constructors' Championships, or 3 points in the race in order to claim P2 in the Constructors, depending on where Crow sits. But if I can quickly do... I'm trying to press my magic buttons, but my magic button's not working. No, it's not. It might help if I do this. There we go. So there's your Constructor or your Drivers' Championship as it stands at the moment. So Tank, 74 points. Only 6 points ahead of Asset, with Crow in P3 with that unfortunate DNF in Abu Dhabi, ruling him out of the Drivers' Championship, with Ben Tomlin in 4th, going up a couple of places from the last race with Marius and BomberBrown in P6. Josh in 7th, haven't seen an appearance in some time. AtomicTristan going up 1 following Abu Dhabi. Then field team George, Dagger, Melt, Green, Tomo, the Flash, looking to climb a few more places on that one. South African FDQ no longer been able to race it for the final time on this season. And then we got Laser, Killjoy, and Golf Maniac rounding off the bottom. So there you go, 6 points in it on the championship, where it is anyone's game at the moment, as we still have that issue there with Bombers Sauber in the middle of the road. But AtomicTristan, though, not phased by that. They may not see it, but we do. But nothing to be concerned about on the lap now, with the Haas driver looking to try and outscore Crow by at least 3 points. Bear in mind, as long as the drivers, though, take the 75% of the Grand Prix, they will receive full points if they were to DNF. Purple middle sector misses the apex of 9 and 10, but makes it through the chicane. Lap time is still intact. Coming now down into turn 11 for the Haas driver. Are we going to see too much of the inside curb? I think the message came through from some of the drivers. They are all talking together. Misses the apex completely of 13. That's going to be a compromise line around 14. 5th gear, maybe a little bit too early on the gear shift there. But down the start finish, 17. That's a 118.721. A good time, but still lots of room for improvement, as the track is going to keep ramping up later on in the Grand Prix. As the see, drivers will go on their final flying lap. Around about 3 minutes left to go. Ben Tomlin, having invalidated the previous lap that they did. Fresh set of the soft compound tyres are now on the Alpine as they make their way on their fast lap at the moment in towards turn 3. There you go, over to the right hand side, kicks it back in. The rear end getting a little bit loose on the Alpine, and using all the track available, but needs to be careful not to get any more dirt on them tyres, because you will lose a lot of grip. But gets nicely through turn 6 and 7, where we saw Albon have a little bit of an incident earlier on this year. But hosting its first Grand Prix back in 1985, back at Adelaide, up until 1995, before it moved to Melbourne for the 96 Australian Grand Prix, and has been here ever since, with the most recent track configuration, as we saw only about 3 years ago now, 3-4 years ago, which saw the removal of the horrendous chicane just after turn 8. And I always hate that chicane, difficult to get traction on the exit, but yeah, they got rid of that in favour for a nice bit of extra DRS, as big Ben Tomlin into the pits, so not happy with the performance on that lap. But he's running out of time. That is 2 sets of soft tyres now been used, and not happy twice in a row, as Tomo, though, does go quickest, 1:15.9. But you can see there on the left, Le Tank has retired from the session. That is due to a qualifying ban that was picked up, receiving 6 points on their super license, and a qualifying ban to go with it. Following the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. An instance noted by the stewards following the Grand Prix, and that's where you can see that happen. So Tank will be starting from the back of the grid, and will have to fight their way forward as hopefully with a little bit of time to go, AssetMartin will be able to join and take that fight for the championship. But there's only about 8 minutes left. We've got yellow flag still in sector 1. That is a slow moving Big Melt, just getting out of the way of the Flash, who is on a push lap by the looks of it. He is indeed. Low downforce on the cars around here. Picks up, and Asset looks like has joined the lobby. We'll see if he can stay along. There is still time left for qualifying, and I think Big Melt's actually in low fuel mode by the looks of it. So that's going to be a long way back to the grid, or a long way back to the pits, should we say. As the Flash now comes around into turn 11, just misses the apex slightly, keeps the car to the left-hand side. Slight lift, slight dab of the brakes, back over to the right-hand side, get there as quick as you can. A little lock up front left, over to the left-hand side. You just see fighting for the traction, just come around the final corner, and you can get an invalidation at on the final corner as you go over the curb, where we saw Carlos Sainz end up in there after a torque overload, as the Flash sits himself up into P4 at the moment. The yellow flag still out though for Big Melt, who has ran out of fuel. But this is what we want to see down at the back though, is BomberBrown still yet to set a time, but with a disconnection issue. Ben Tomlin will have one more chance to get a lap done around this circuit, with the clock still counted down, and the Asset will need to get that setup put on that car as quick as possible and start setting lap times to try and get ahead of try and stay ahead of Tank and get as far forward down the grid as you can, as it looks like Asset has now left the pits. We'll just wait and see momentarily. Yes, he goes. Asset has managed to get in and out. The Haas though, 2 versus 1 now on the Haas versus Ferrari for the Constructors Championship, with but only a 4 minutes left in qualifying. So Asset's going to need to do something out of the bag. He will be out of sync, possibly may be able to get 2 runs by the looks of it, or this will be the last chance saloon. Being this late into qualifying, 3 minutes, those in the pits, you should now see them to start leaving in around about 20 or so seconds time, as the track is now at its finest condition, to say the least. The track is now at its optimum driving grip for the drivers on to the soft compound tyres. So we'll wait and see what this man can do, aiming to get as high up. One chance is all that Asset is going to get here in Melbourne. This is the battle for the championship. But how is he going to do now? Rounds the final corner. We'll stay on board and see what we can do. We keep an eye out on the delta on the right hand side, but nothing to compare it to. So we're just going to have to see what they can do from this one. In towards turn 1. Seems nice and clean on the apex, not running too wide on the exit of turn 2. Picks up the DRS. BomberBrown now rejoining the lobby. Just under 3 minutes left to go. In towards turn 3. Looks very clean. Over to the right hand side. Into 4. Avoids the curb. Keeps it nice and tidy through there. Not taking too much of the curb, but losing out maybe a little bit of time by not extending that car. Nice and tight into 7, or into 6, then into 7, riding all the curb. Now it's all about not scrubbing too much tyre, keeping the wheel as smooth as you can, as straight as you can, not scrubbing any of the speed. Over to the right hand side, in towards a high speed chicane. Looks very good in towards 9, just misses the apex of 10, but keeps it clean. Still pick up the DRS. You can just see all that battery depleting. Braking about 60 meters there. Gets the car rotated round, and a little bit too much rotation. It was looking good for Asset, and not at this time. Well, not at this point, at this time. As I do see a little certain someone has joined the lobby, but I can't see if he's in the chat yet. Wait and see. Wait and see. He's here.
I'm here.
He made it.
But I made it, but I've just made a booby, so I'm going to have to back out the session and come back in. So, bear with.
That's fine, because at least your stream isn't having the same issue as it was in Abu Dhabi, where it's just not doing what I want it to do.
Yeah, true. But otherwise, you're going to see me in a car on the track, and I don't know how much we want that.
Well, I mean, it would be entertaining to see at least, but I mean, not ideal considering I need you talking to me.
Live on track reporter.
But how are you doing, George?
Oh, brilliant! I've just finished work. Very busy day, and now I've come to de-stress by screaming about 20. Well, I don't know how many drivers there'll be, but at least a maximum of 20 drivers going around Australia. What more do you want in life?
Well, yeah, can't complain with that one. And just in time for the start of the Grand Prix, as we've got two cars moving very slowly around the track, and AssetMobile's will not be able to complete a lap. That little mistake, just taking too much of the curb. AssetMobile was on a good roll to get up into probably at least P3, maybe with the one push lap available. But now only starts just ahead of Tank, his champion rival, coming into the final race because of one slight mistake. A banker lap would have been enough. But apparently not at this time, as the checker flag will be coming out in 7 seconds' time. As it looks like
need another invite.
You are going to need another invite as we're on the final lap. We'll do this very quickly. Friends. Professional team. Professional team we are. But yeah, Flash has taken the checker flag. No improvement from him. BomberBrown with his connection issue again in P8. Will not have a chance to do a lap time. Asset, though, that little mistake. And speaking of little mistakes, that is Tomo also invalidating that lap time. So Tomo is not going to improve. Crow does go half a tenth quicker, but not enough to close the gap on Tomo. George crosses the line now in towards P3 as a Big Melt also crosses the line, improves by 1.6 seconds on their lap time. AtomicTristan is in the pits, and is Ben Tomlin still on a push? Ben Tomlin did make it in time to the checkered flag, as you can just see the lock up there from the McLaren, no, Mercedes up ahead. But where's this going to put Ben Tomlin now? Up into P2 for the Alpine driver, a lap at the right time. And that is exactly what the Alpine wants for the final race of the season. Ben Tomlin, though, is currently sitting in P4 in the championship, but is 12 points behind Crow, so won't be able to overtake, but will be under threat from Marius and Bomber. Even AtomicTristan, no, AtomicTristan won't be able to get him in the championship, but that is qualifying. Done and dusted, in a nutshell.
Looked interesting. From what I could see.
But there you have it, though. That is Evo Tomo taking the top spot will take the front row. I'm struggling to talk today. Ben Tomlin, a fantastic lap right at the end there, snatches P2 away from Crow, who's in third with George, sharing the second row in P4 for McLaren. Then you got Flash, Big Melt, AtomicTristan, Golf Maniac with BomberBrown, Tank, and Asset. Rounding up your drivers, round up the grid. But with the qualifying ban, I don't know if it's actually going to set Tank ahead of Asset, which is going to be an interesting one.
How we see the grid on that is how the grid is going to form up. So Tank will be ahead, technically.
Okay. Well, the gods have prevailed, though.
I did message you. It's a wet race.
I did not see the message, but we're just having a quick look now. Wet race, yes, I can confirm. The heavens have opened, and we could actually see a carbon copy of what happened in the actual Formula 1, but only a month ago.
Yes. It made it interesting. I don't know whether we're going to see any dry running. I'm going to try and get my informant to tell me.
Yeah, it would be an interesting one if we could see the mixed conditions come through. But yeah, wet race. So this might explain why the lap times were weren't somewhere in like the 114s or the 116s, but we were seeing, same also in the 114s, but yeah, down in the 117s, 118s would explain that they could be setting the cars up absolutely for a full wet race. So
And it is going to be. It's going to be a full wet race.
And we have confirmed.
Confirmed.
Oh dear. So full wet race is on the intermediate compound of tyre for all of the drivers. By the looks of it, no sign of the full wets. As we'll just quickly try and find the tyre choice. There it is confirmed on the screen. All intermediate compound tyres for the drivers as Tomo leads them on the formation lap around Albert Park. As yep, just had to double check, it was a formation lap, so the lobby was set up just fine.
Yeah, but unlike what we saw a month ago, there's no one in the wall at turn number 2, so we will go racing straight away and not a 10-minute delay.
Yeah, not a 10-minute delay from that one. Poor Isaac Hadjar's first race and gets a bit of a torque overload. Then it was a torque overload from Carlos Sainz. Then it was Jack Doohan, I believe, ended up in the wall as well. Out of all 6 rookies, the only one to make it across the line was Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, you know,
I do believe
it was a hard race for their first race in Formula 1. It's a hard race because you got to remember the Junior Series didn't start racing in Australia until a couple of years ago, so the drivers wouldn't have been very very accustomed to the track. But with the wet weather especially, that made it even more difficult. The Formula 2 race that was due to take place a couple hours before, and I know this because I was sat with my friend watching it, waiting for the racing to start, was in the end cancelled because of the downpour they had just before the race in Formula 1 kicked off, and the downpour was torrential. But cars are now back on the grid, doing their burnouts, getting their tyres nice and warm as we see Tank spin it again.
Yeah, that's excuse me. Yeah, that was a Tank possibly losing the back end coming out of the final corner. Lines up on the grid, but will be ahead of Asset as this is the moment where I will not get a good camera angle. Tank out of position. We'll have to jump on board and wait for the lights. As here we go then, it's 2, 3, 4, that's 5 lights. Pause for the effect. It's lights out and away they go here in Australia for the final race of the championship. It's a great start from Tomo, but an even better start from Crow. Look how George has catch up as well. In towards 2 on the go, and ahead stays at Tomo. We look a little bit further back. The Alpines though side by side as well. BomberBrown moving up a couple of places from AtomicTristan as Asset has moved up now into P10. Tank on Bomber gets around the AI car, I believe it is, but Tomo's still under threat from Crow as they're going through the chicane of turns 3 and 4. So Tank up into P6, the Flash and the 2 Alpines then 4th and 5th. Everyone keeping it relatively clean by the looks of it as you got the 2 Haas's now battling away, and I think that may be a little bit of team order there. AtomicTristan did go a little bit wide, but I think maybe in team orders to let Asset go through to chase it down at BomberBrown, get that move, get that overtake done as quickly as possible to then get onto the back of Tank as Tank goes around Flash just before the high speed chicanes of 9 and 10. That looked like a bit of a deploy to overtake. You can see that on his battery, 20% battery. So it looks like Tank is trying to do all he can to get ahead as Crow gets around Tomo. Asset is around BomberBrown. So Crow now takes the lead of the Grand Prix. So Tomo, maybe a slight mistake in towards turn 11. Just trying to stay onto the gearbox of the Ferrari with George though still hooking behind and gets a snap oversteer moment squarely on the exit. And no DRS will be available. It is down to the driver's skill. Lap 1 done as Crow and Tomo are still looking to get the pass moved on each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant start by Tank, up 5 positions from the start. Very much like Oliver Behrman in the race yesterday at Bahrain. So great start there by the Racing Bull. Kept saying VCARB in the last race. It's going to be Racing Bull this time. AtomicTristan gets ahead of Golf Maniac now down into turn number 3. So great move there by the Haas. It's now on to Big Melt as we start to see Crow and Tomo starting to go for a position. Tomo's going to have a look round the inside. It's going to turn into the outside on the run down Lakeside Drive. Tomo is ahead, and Tomo gets ahead as they go into turn number 9. It's a brilliant move. A little bit of push to overtake. Probably not going to see DRS enabled. Well, we would have seen it enabled already just because of the conditions. Probably won't see it enabled this race either, just because it is a little bit wet. But who knows? If it starts to lighten up a little bit, we never know. It can change. We are due a full wet race, but if the rain lightens, oh, it's a snap there by Crow, and gets very close to the rear end of Tomo there as they come around the final corner now to finish the second lap. It's Tomo in the lead, then Crow, George, Tank, Ben Tomlin, Flash, Asset, BomberBrown, Tristan, Melt, and Golf Minute. The Tank 6 positions up, but I don't think the battle at the front is over yet.
No, and the Tank made a move on Ben Tomlin just before they got into turn 9 and 10. They were overtaken the exact same time as Crow and Tomo were doing their overtakes, but now Tank is on the diffuser of the McLaren of George as Big Melt gets around AtomicTristan. They are still battling up down into turn 1. We still have a look at what's going on down here around the outside, outbreaking each other, but then Big Melt gets ahead as the inside line of turn 2 comes into effect, but they're not giving up. AtomicTristan though getting into a little bit of a battle with the kick Sauber of Golf Maniac. Tomo still ahead of Crow. Tank still looking to get past George. They're now down the start finish, or the back straight should we say. So we'll jump on board with Tank. Tank looks to go around the outside of George. Tank has got no battery left. George letting him brake a little bit earlier or a little bit later, and that was a bit close to track limits there on Tank, but Tank gets ahead of George, but there's nothing left in the battery for him to defend with. So this could be George's opportunity to regain that position back from Tank in the VCARB, or the Racing Bulls, we call them VCARB, or was it Visa Cash App Red Bull Racing, buy one get one free or something like that, as James Vowles said in Monaco.
Red Bull Sugar Free.
Yeah,
one.
It was by far one of James Vowles' best comments in Formula One when they were at Monaco.
Yeah.
But Crow and Tomo both getting squirrely, drifting around that final corner. You can see how difficult it is to drive these cars, and Crow more so being in the dirty air of the Mercedes. Giorgio is still on the gearbox. Oh, looking to get a little bit closer now to Tank, who was just able to eke out another 0.3 of a second just in the braking point of turn 3 as Ben Tomlin now looks to go around the Asset. We could see this move definitely been made as they go along the start and finish. Asset, not a lot of battery power left, but remember that Asset will need to outscore the Tank by 6 points in order to take the championship. And as it stands, Tank is still going to take that position, or still take the crown, as he is only 2 seconds behind Crow, still looking to chase down and get the victory on track. George in P4. Not quite holding on enough, but Ben Tomlin though is still on the chase for P6 to get that position from the Asset, and the Asset needs to get a little bit more of a push as he's 2 seconds behind Flash.
Yeah, absolutely. The Tank with a brilliant start, 7 positions from the lights out there. The ERS update, Tomo has 82% battery remaining, so plenty to defend. Crow, on the other hand, has used it all, pushing. He's down to 17%. Tank down to 30 as well. So at the minute, or I think it's either a bit of lag or a bit of contact there.
Little bit of contact.
There was a little bit of contact. I thought it was just my internet going a bit weird for a minute there. But yeah, what we're seeing there then, Tomo really starting to buy his time a little bit. And get ready to use his ERS, especially when he starts pushing to come into the pits. Because obviously these inters, technically, the rules have changed. You don't have to pit under the wet conditions. We're seeing Crow possibly thinking of a move very, very close on the back of Tomo, but we'll come back to that in a second as they come down Lakeside Drive. But because we're in the wet conditions, we do not have to pit. They could stay out on that intermediate tyre for the whole race if they really wanted to, if they could go that long. As Crow's now going to have a look on the inside, but it's just a look. Tomo keeps that door firmly shut and not allowing the Ferrari to come through. But yeah, that could happen, but as we know with the intermediates, they do turn it into a slick very, very quickly. And in these conditions, it's not like Turkey in 2021. We're going to have to maybe change the tyres and make sure that we can dissipate that water as quickly as possible, which I'm sure the wonderful Jack will give us a lovely tyre stat for us about how many bathtubs he could fill in under a second.
Ah, you know I had it prepped when I saw it was a wet race, but we'll get to that one in a minute as Crow is right on the diffuser. Again, they're both snap oversteering, just trying to get the traction down. But behind, excuse me, behind though, they are holding their gap from Tank. As Ben Tomlin and TheAsset are battling side by side in towards turn 3. And Ben Tomlin just keeps it ahead at the moment. So a bit more work for Asset to get past that Alpine, getting him, well, basically Ben getting his elbows out there saying, you're not going to get past me here. So they're going to try that one again. Plenty of battery though on the Alpine as they are both deploying it all the way down the straight, or down the slightly wonky back straight, in order to keep them gaps open. And there's nothing that Asset can do because his battery is running out, and this is the one way that you're going to see this race unfold, as Asset's able to close the gap then, takes a nice tighter line, doesn't get a track limit violation because one of his tyres was still technically on the track at the time. You can just see how much he's able to close up just through that 9-10 section, as Crow now looking to get the move done down at the start finish straight. Is he going to give a little flash in the mirrors? You can tell he's pushing. He now has the fastest lap. Not close enough this time around. Is he going to wait until down in towards turn number 3? Not quite this time. And Crow is deploying his battery, and Tomo is just pretty much sat there chilling. He didn't deploy his battery once coming out of turn 3.
No, he's been practicing. I'll say that. He has been practicing the last couple of days. Since he's got back from holiday, especially yesterday. We jumped on last night for a couple of warm-up rounds, but Crow's going to have a look on the inside. Oh, I thought there was going to be contact between the wheels there. There's a bit of wheel banging. Crow's now deploying 20%, down to 15. He's not got a lot of battery. He's going to go into a D rate in a bit. That's probably why he's not able to pass as easily as he thought. He needs to start charging his battery up, because Tomo, like I said, he's just sat there chilling because he's got 78% worth of battery. He's got that natural energy push, which Crow is going to struggle to have a bit because he's only got about 10% remaining. So he's going to have a little look down on the inside now. Tomo is going to try and keep the door shut. Oh, there's a little bit of contact, a little bit of a slide for Crow. That's not going to help him. Now into the second to last corner as they come up to it. Luke on the inside. Is it going to be enough to keep him ahead? Crow's going around the outside. It's going to become the inside for the final corner. Crow takes the lead of the Grand Prix as Luke, he has a bit of a slide coming out of the corner. Not going to help him at all. He's now starting to deploy that battery a bit more just to try and get back in the running, but they've got to be careful. The VCARB of Letank is sitting right behind them, and Letank is coming out for glory after the penalties that were applied in the last race. He's coming back for redemption and to take the title.
Tank with these two fighting up at the front, managed to close up 2.5 second gap, 2.4 second gap. These two side by side, but clean side by side racing in the wet conditions. And it is definitely tricky, especially in these cars nowadays with the steering and the throttle input. And Tank, whilst these have been fighting, has managed to harvest a lot of his battery, now over about 60%, now down to about 50 as he's deploying to try and get the move made onto Tomo before turns at 9 and 10. It won't be close enough this time round, but Tomo is getting even closer to the Ferrari. You can just see they're almost fully drifting around the corner. So these three will be fighting out to the end, I'm sure. Lap 8 of 29. Only 11 laps left to go in the Grand Prix, as it is anyone's game at the moment, as Asset though still can't seem to get around the Alpine of Ben Tomlin. Not enough ERS to use, as the engine, or as the battery will be derating, as they're only allowed to deploy, I think it's something like 2 kilojoules, something like that if I remember correctly, per lap before the battery derates. But that also gives you a deficit of a good about 70, 100 horsepower or so. It's something crazy, the amount of power the ERS works, and it's only going to get even stronger in 2026.
Yeah, 26. We're looking at even bigger batteries. We're not going to have the MGUH, I believe, the motor generator unit heat, because apparently that does absolutely nothing. It's kind of useless on the car. So they're getting rid of it, but they're going to have more battery power. So we're going to see longer lasting ERS modes and a lot more power per lap. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, Tomo is starting to use his ERS to try and defend against Letank. Letank was going to have a little look around the outside. It's not going to be possible going into the fast section of turns 9 and 10. He's starting to deploy even more now, down to 30%. Letank's going to have a look on the inside, has to cut back in to the racing line, just too far back, does not want to cause any collisions, because collisions could mean investigations, and investigations could mean
penalties.
Yes, absolutely. And
But
the tank doesn't want one of those if he wants to win the championship.
I think for that one, he also doesn't want to get caught up in some form of a collision, because you lose a bit of your end plate around here, and you could be looking at a huge amount of downforce loss, especially on the front wings. And in these conditions, you want all the downforce that you can get to keep that car pointing in the right direction when you were going around a corner at about 150 miles an hour. As Tank still closing that gap. Crow just eking away a 1 second gap now on to Tomo. So Tomo has a choice now. Does he still push to attack, or now does he push to defend? As we could possibly see Tank get the move done, as Asset has got around Ben Tomlin in the Alpine. He's got a 6 second gap to chase down the second Alpine of the Flash, and there was a moment there for Tomo, and Tank has just gone through down the back straight, and don't know what quite happened. Tomo getting maybe a little bit of a snap oversteer moment coming out of turn 8 or out of turn 7, and this is now just released Tank to go and chase down Crow. And that was a huge moment, because that's almost a second extra he's lost. And Tank is only 6 tenths down the road. We just have to keep an eye on that delta between the Ferrari driver and the racing bull of Tank. But currently, Crow is going to take the Constructors' Championship for Ferrari, unless Asset can climb one more position during the Grand Prix, as it looks like there is a dry line starting to form, but not at the same time. We could possibly look at mixed conditions, maybe.
Yeah, there is a slight possibility. I'm jumping on board with a couple of drivers just to kind of see where this dry line is forming, and it is ever so slight. It is ever so slight. We're nowhere near at a phase where, you know, they could risk a slick tyre. It's still going to be far too greasy and slippery for that. It looked to be, Tomo had a bit of snap oversteer as he was coming into Lakeside Drive. But then at the same time, Tank had it, but Tank was able to really control it and kept the power down, was able to overtake. As I think we've just seen someone come into the pits. That might have been Big Melt. Big Melt's also come in as well. I think we're seeing a few drivers coming into the pits. I think it must be for fresh intermediates. If we're seeing anything other than intermediates, it's probably not going to do. Yes, Asset came in for fresh intermediate tyres. So has Big Melt. So fresher inters, more water is going to be able to dissipate from the tyres, which means they're going to go a bit faster. So we might start seeing more drivers now starting to enter pit lane for those fresh intermediate tyres.
Here's the question is how are these top three going to react with the pit stops, and what can Big Melt do? Is he looking for an undercut on Golf Maniac? Possibly, as Crow stays out, Tank stays out, and so does Tomo. The gap's now opened up at the front as BomberBrown's AI has been lapped. Now we've got a yellow flag. That was for Golf Maniac. Unsure what happened there, but that was definitely a yellow flag on track just at the start of Sector 2. But with the fresh intermediate tyres on, which means that there will be that definite 35 to 40 litres of water per second per tyre being dispersed on the track. 150 litres per second total. And of course, you can fill a bathtub up in about 2 seconds. A standard home bathtub, but if you want to fill an a large outdoor paddling pool that contains 6,503 litres, your standard Mahusi one, it will take you 43.35 seconds to do that. So,
I wonder what it would be for an Olympic swimming pool.
Oh, unfortunately, I don't have the time.
Here we go. Big Melt in the wall. He's had a spin. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
I've just seen a yellow flag pop up. It looks like Big Melt had a bit of a spin going into the two right-handers and has just ended up in the wall on those fresh intermediate tyres. So I don't know really what happened there, but Big Melt in the wall, probably going to get lapped in a minute because Crow is not too far away.
Yeah, that's the same place where we saw Max Verstappen. His brakes just locked up, so he could have actually just locked up the rears a little bit, went sideways, tried to power out of it, do a little bit of a power slide, but causing the spin. No wing damage though, luckily for Big Melt. And maybe not quite getting the tyres. Yeah, you may not have got the tyres up to temperature, but Tank has got himself a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. 3 warnings or 2 strikes. The third one, you get your penalty, and he won't be serving that one. That will get added to the end of his race. Normally, in Formula 1, you'll get a 5-second penalty, and you will serve that in your next pit stop, if not added to the end of the race. Which means currently this puts Tank down into P3, but Asset is too far back to catch at the moment, as Ben Tomlin has gone past him again. So Tank, 3-second penalty, needs to be careful, but he will reset. So he gets 2 more strikes, and then he will receive another 3-second penalty for track limits, adding up to 6 total. So currently Tomo net P2 as we hit lap 13 of 29 here in Albert Park for the Australian Grand Prix, where we saw Lewis Hamilton take most poles here as the record with 8 altogether. And furthest back on the grid that we've ever seen someone win the Grand Prix was David Coulthard when he won from 11th back in 2003. That was a year.
Impressive.
That was definitely a year. Well, Michael Schumacher though still has the most wins here with 4, I believe, currently, as we've seen 3 different winners in Melbourne in the last few years. I believe Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, and Lewis Hamilton. I believe the 3 different winners at one point. Or it was the McLaren and Norris. It was one of them.
I'll come back to you now because I know, from what I remember, it's a curse. It's a curse. If you win the Grand Prix one year, you're going to retire the next. Because we saw Leclerc win in 2022. He then retired in 2023. Max then won in 2023, retired in 2024 with his brake failure. 2024 was won by Carlos Sainz. And I think Carlos Sainz crashed out. Yes, he crashed out this year, didn't he? He also retired. The curse of the Australian Grand Prix once again.
He did, and wasn't there another Red Bull? I think Max Verstappen had 2 issues. He had the brake that exploded down the pit lane, and then I believe it was the year before that. I'm sure he had an engine issue, or someone had an engine issue. It might have been Perez.
Might have been Perez, but we got cars in the pit lane. Crow and Tomo dive into the pits for fresh intermediates.
They are. You can see the tyre wear difference on Crow's car, especially. You can see the rears; they're very smooth on some of these cars. See, look when George comes in now, how smooth the rear tyre is. The front still got grip. You can see now the tread coming on there. This is all the grip that they need. George being held in the pit lane by the looks of it. Possibly maybe avoiding an unsafe release. Ben Tomlin's in. Tank though has stayed out on the track, so Tank is, as it looks like the Alpines were trying to double stack there. So Tank stays out on the track. Crow and Tomo looking for an undercut as George and Asset are fighting on pit lane exit. They are still side by side at the moment, down towards turn 3. Asset has decided to stay out, which is why he's climbed up all these positions. And as you said, he doesn't technically have to stop in this Grand Prix due to the track being declared wet. There is no requirement for a mandatory pit stop onto an alternate compound of tyre that you would do in the dry track conditions. So Asset and George battling. This is crucial for Asset now. How far can you go on these intermediate tyres, and can you go to the end of the Grand Prix? But it's grip versus slicks at probably this point, especially the rear tyres, looking at the state of some of the cars as they come into the pit.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's some great battles going on. The tank now boxes. Crow is now coming around the final corner. So Crow's going to be able to overtake. I think Tomo might be able to do it as well. It might be tight on the pit exit. Tank now leaves the pit box. Fresh intermediates. Look, Tomo has gone through. So Tomo has been able to make the undercut work. Am I right? Undercut?
Yes, yep,
yeah.
yes, the undercut.
Yeah, I've got to make sure. Because if I get it wrong, I'm a bit embarrassing. You know, watched the sport for nearly 10 years. 10 years? 20 years. But yeah, so the undercuts worked for Tomo and Crow. They've just got to remember the tank's quite quick behind. So it's going to be a case of conserve the ERS ready to defend. Because at the minute, Crow's sat on 60 and he's deploying down Lakeside Drivers. Tomo now gets a 3-second time penalty. It's even stakes now for the tank and Tomo. But yeah, Crow's deploying out of corners to try and build a gap. That's not going to be good when he needs to defend. Tomo very much conserving the ERS, trying to make sure he has a lot in reserve. The tank as well, reserving the ERS ready to attack.
Oh, sorry, 2 secs, George. That is other George making the move on Asset, coming down into 910 chicane. The camera angle switched for a moment, as you can see the flash just go ahead of them, and it was a case of who is going to come around that corner first. They were still side by side. George though ahead now. Asset looking to come back at George. Crow with the fastest lap. He is now deploying, like you said, to get that gap open, and I don't think Asset can do much more against Crow. So against George. So we should see Asset into the pit at some point for a new set of tyres. Stays out this lap. As we'll just quickly see how many stops that you can see there. No, Asset did pit. I do apologise. So Golf and BomberBrown yet to stop. So Asset just not quite having the grip in that Haas car. Losing out to George now down into P6.
Yeah, absolutely. Asset pitted some time ago as the AI, that is BomberBrown, enters pit lane for those fresh intermediates. I can't remember what I was saying before, but because the other George decided he wanted to take my limelight, as normal. Sorry, territory thing. As he's not been here in so long, and he's decided to turn up in the last 3. But yeah, it's going to be, I think that these last few laps are going to be interesting. It's now going to be a case of who can conserve their tyres the most. Because like I said, these tyres are going to wear off quite quickly, especially as the track carries on dry. And it's still raining. So it's not going to get overly dry. We're still going to have a very wet racing line, well, damp racing line, very much more greasy, if anything. And then we'll be able to see some more racing should the rain start to ease up a bit more. If we start to see the rain ease up in the next 10 laps, we could be seeing a very, very late call for the intermediates. But a lot of drivers will probably carry on with the intermediate tyre, because of how soft it is when it gets to a slick stage, of when the track goes green and is dry, and we see that DRS be enabled, it's still going to be a very, very quick tyre. But gaps are now starting to emerge across the field. Yeah, time for a breather. I still don't know how many Olympic swimming pools the wet tyre or the Inter could use, mate.
Well, if you can find out how much the average Olympic swimming pool can hold, and then something like divide that by 60 seconds and then times it by 40 or so. There was an equation that I can't quite remember what it was, but yeah, you need to figure out the literage, then figure out the liters, and then the seconds. I don't know. I did this stat a long time ago, George. Okay.
I'm waiting for you to redo it. If you want to know, an Olympic swimming pool, 2.5 million litres of water.
Okay, so any boffins in the chat, if you can, say 2.5 million litres of water, and the intermediate tyre displaces 40 litres of water per second. So we've got a yellow flag in sector 1. And maybe a slight off there from, I think that was Big Mouth trying to get out of the way. But yeah, so totaling 150 litres per second. Then divide that by 2.5 million per second or something like that. I'm sure someone could figure it out.
AI might be our best friend here.
AI, or relying on the chat, because they obviously know they know a lot more than what I do when it comes to math, especially. But we are though 11 laps left to go. It is lap 19 of 29. Currently leading in the down here in Albert Park is the Ferrari of Crow. A 6.7 second gap. That is now pulled on Tomo, currently sat in P2, but being hunted down by Tank, and this will be an on-track battle for position, given that they both have a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. You got Flash in the Alpine, currently leading out the two drivers. So Crow will currently take the Constructors' Championship, I believe, for Ferrari. That'll be a P2 in the Constructors, as Flash will score some decent points for the Alpine. And I don't quite have the Constructors pulled up on my screen. I only have the drivers. But then you got George in McLaren in P5. Asset, though, P6, and will need to get ahead of Tank. And, well, basically we need to score 6 points ahead of Tank, but currently that is not possible. But the Haas, though, still scoring points, will currently round up. It'll be the runner-up in the Season 2 Championship. Just unfortunate about that qualifying situation where they had that slight moment coming out of turn 11, hit the curb too much, unsettled the car, and when the power got put down, it was enough to send the Haas looking the other direction. Similar to how we saw, I believe, Lewis Hamilton in this first race for Ferrari as well. There's lots of comparisons going on this track that we can actually relate to the actual Formula 1 itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to see it more when we head to F1 25. Should we, you know, use F1 25 for the league? Because there's questions whether we are going to use it or not. I'm pushing for we should use it. I don't know about you, Jack. Yellow flag, I think that is... Yeah, it's Big Mel.
Big Mel getting out of the way.
Yeah. I'm putting my hand up for let's keep it to the Codemasters games so everyone can join in. And we don't have to spend loads of money on iRacing. I don't know about you, Jack.
Well, I do believe there are plans in the work to use F1 25 for different leagues, but definitely stay tuned to keep out for that one, as the next season will begin following the release, some testing, probably a few updates, I'm sure, and then all the information and details will come out, which apparently I'm being told that I am to race, George, so you might end up being on your own for that one. Oh, for that season, unless we can get a second one.
Well, you never know. It depends on how our league format's going to work. It could be me versus you, my friend.
We tried this in ACC, and we all know how well that ended up.
Don't know what you're on about, mate.
Yeah,
don't know what you're on about.
Well, I mean, so the F1 season will be coming to a close. Big Mac, though, gets a 3-second penalty, but I'm sure a lot of them warnings were for him getting out of the way of other drivers. But yes, following the Formula 1 season conclusion, which is today, there'll be a couple of weeks breaks before the RAF start the Assetto Corsa season, the Assetto Corsa Competizione season. That'll be, I believe, in 2 weeks' time. Don't think we're going to be covering any of that on stream, as we don't have a commentator, and I believe, again, I've been told that I am to race. So, and I'm sure you're going to be racing in that one as well, George, I do believe.
Yep, I'll be racing in ACC again this season. Don't you worry about that.
Yep, and I will definitely stay clear of you on the track, or I'll just wave past as I see you spinning in the gravel in the Nordschleife. But on track, though, on track, though, Tank is trying to close the gap onto Tomo now. It is 0.4 of a second, just shy of half a second behind. So Tank is trying to get the position on track. So I think Crow may have sort of sailed away with this at the moment. So Tank looking to get P2 as it closes up. Manages to get a little bit, bit more of a better drive going through chicane of 3 and 4, but has his tyres. They are 2 laps older, younger than what Tomo has. So we'll have the benefit of the traction. The rain's still coming down. The racing line is still visible on the track now through the high speed of 910. You can see the back end of that Mercedes get very slidey, especially when he comes through turn 9. But I think the Tank had a bit of a wobble going into there, unsure. He just dropped 2 seconds. I saw him go quite slow into just coming out of turn 9 actually. So not quite sure what happened there with Tank, but 2.3 seconds is the gap that he's got to face now. And speaking of more positions possibly changing, George is now within 1 second of the Flash, looking to get P4 on track. No penalties applied for these two drivers at the moment, but I do though have a replay, and Ben Tomlin though gets a 3-second penalty for his track limit violation, as this will definitely help AssetMobile's out, so I won't have to worry about falling behind Ben too much, as now we just need to see what he can do to close up the gap to George. But hopefully I've got a replay here. We'll wait and see which one it is. It should be the overtakes between Crow and Tomo in towards the final 2 corners. You can just see side by side the Ferrari and the Mercedes into the final corner. Crow still sticking around the outside. Tomo gets a little bit of a wheel spin there, and then Crow sails through. And that was some great overtaking though. Lap 7 that happened. That's no longer been holding on to that replay, as Asset though has decided to come to the pits. Fresh set of intermediates, and did have the benefit of the free pit stop from Tristan, who's currently down in P8. Lap 23 of 29. Past the back markers. George is now going of, believe that maybe Golf Maniac down in P9. So George still on the hunt to get round the Flash. We can see what can we see him do through the high speed chicane. How close is that gap going to close down at the moment? Looks like Flash just a little bit later on the brakes, but holds the snap. You can just see the back end of the Alpine go. Still there's still a few miles left to go to get this move, to get this overtake done, as Tank is still forcing. Sorry, I looked away for the wrong time then, and that is George and the Flash at side by side contact then. It looked like it was the wheels got hooked together as George gives the position back, I believe, to Flash. That was racing back on, and I'm not quite sure. I think they're both side by side, got an oversteer moment at the exact same time, and that's when you catch on to each other and both end up towards the barrier. Not wing damage on either of the cars. George though still looking to get the overtake done. Lap 24, they cross the start finish line in towards turn 2, but not quite making that happen just yet. We're going to see anything down into turn 3. Unlikely. George a little bit too far back.
A little bit too far back. Oh, it's just an immense battle, but George is starting to run out of fuel a little bit, so he's got less fuel in than the Flash, I believe. Yes, so he's going to be a little bit quicker just on weight. But we're just going to have to wait and see about that one. But Le Tank is now starting to catch up to Tomo. But Le Tank only has 17% battery, and it's just rose that to 30. Tomo's got about 100% worth of battery. So hopefully, if he uses it right, Tomo can stay in front at this point. But it is some incredible racing around here. We love a wet race, and it was the way that we could finish the season was by having a wet race. And I think filling an Olympic-sized swimming pool with intermediate tyres would take 17.5 hours.
That's actually not too bad.
Let that sink in, considering using a normal flow rate hose pipe takes 30. So you get it done in half the time.
Well, there you go. So if you want to fill up a 2.5 million or 2.4 million litre Olympic swimming pool, all you need to do is get a lake, stick an F1 car in it, and get to start revving up the rear wheels.
Yeah, just don't expect to jump in that swimming pool for at least 24 hours, just so the water can warm up a little bit.
Actually,
unless you want an ice bath.
That is a fair point, though, because technically it'll be double the time, as it looks like Tomo's heavily defending then against Tank going in towards turn 9. It will only be half of that one, because if you just spin up the rear wheels, then obviously you've got to take that into account. So 17 times that by 2.
You might as well just pick up a hose.
Yeah. Oh well, there you go. Thank you for the information on that. I do greatly appreciate it.
So someone else has got to pull out these facts at some point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm missing just like the bottom line of the chat. I've got my track map window a little bit too high, so I'm missing like one line. So, yeah, I didn't quite see it all come through.
One job, Jack. One job.
I have a lot of things to look at. So, and speaking of things to look at, though, coming up to nearly 3.5 laps left to go here in Melbourne, as Tank is still looking to get around Tomo. I think Tomo now is thinking about using his battery a bit more. Tank able to get so much later on the brakes in towards turn 3. So what has Tank got in his battery? Tank is able to save his battery quite a bit. Oh, that's a huge off! That's a huge off for Tomo. He's lost the rear wheel and into the barrier he's gone. That is wing damage. Here we're going to see a virtual safety car at this point. I don't think we are. I may have. I've just quickly mashed my button. As you can see on board, and just spins up the rear wheels into the barrier. And that's it. That's Tomo's fight for P2. And now has got a 20-second gap to the Flash. He was just closed another second on Tomo. And this is devastating stuff with 4 laps left to go. Now technically about 3.5 laps left to go. As Crow rounds the final corner, is about to lap AtomicTristan. Will still not get any DRS. And that is devastating stuff.
Devastating. That is devastating. He's having such a good race. He has been practicing. He said to me this morning, while I was working, as he comes into the pits, he's like, nope, I've got a pit for... Oh, the Tank's in as well. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be feisty for P2 now. It could be game on, as Tomo and Le Tank both box for fresh intermediate tyres.
But a front wing change is going to put that delay leaving the pits on to Tomo, but he does have now the benefit of all the downforce. So I think Tank saw that damage had come across. He knew he would have a free pit stop, as Flash now goes up into P4. George now goes up into P4. Into P4. Flash out in P3. 2 laps left to go in the Grand Prix. Yellow flag. We've got an off. That's a Golf Maniac facing the wrong way, coming out of turn 6.
And
it's
damage.
the closing stage. That is massive damage on the front right wing of the Kick Sauber. Soon to be Audi next year, as this is changing a little bit spicy. No virtual safety car, and at this point in the Grand Prix, though, I believe it will not set out or send out a virtual safety car or a safety car with only 2 laps left to go, if Game Mechanic says correct.
Yeah, Game Mechanics will not send it out this late in the Grand Prix. We're on lap 28 then of lap 29, and it's all started to kick off at the end. Right at the end of the season, it kicks off even more. That's what we want just before we go on a nice little spring/summer break.
His Asset there gets around Ben Tomlin.
Yeah, Asset coming around then. Has been able to get past Ben Tomlin. Ben Tomlin with a little bit of a slide coming out of turns 9 and 10, I believe that is. I can't remember me calling numbers that well.
Into 11 now they go.
Yeah, there we go. Into 11 and into 12. 12, you've got to be really careful. You hit that curb, you might spin it on the inside. It's one of those auto spin curbs that I was, unfortunately, a victim of yesterday when doing a few laps around here. Golf Maniac comes out ahead of the Haas with not a bad gap. That's going to drop very, very quickly, however, as the timing tower just hasn't quite changed yet. I don't think the gap between them is quite right. I don't think it's a 40-second gap. Yellow flag into sector 1 there. I think that's just the car getting out the way around where George, Flash and Tomo are. But it has been one hell of a race. Just in terms of strategy, I think strategy's been a massive thing in this, knowing when to box and if you want to do that late pit stop. But also just the on-track action, like it has been all season. We've had some incredible races this season, both in season 1 where we were streaming a lot more, and then season 2, which I don't know who's to blame for that. I don't know about you, Jack. Someone's to blame for the non-streams.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I had to disappear, and you just didn't bother. So,
wow.
I'm joking. No,
don't know about don't bother.
Yeah, unfortunately, we all do leave busy lives, whether people are serving or not serving. But we still have our current jobs to go to, and sometimes shifts work as it is, and then you've got courses, you've got people going on deployments. So this is why you see a flux in some of the drivers, and obviously the commentary team as well. So unfortunately, we may not be able to stream every single race, but it's more than enough to keep the entertainment going for the RAF F1 Esports Championships. But here we go, though. The guy who started not quite on pole, had a blinding start, started in P3. He now comes round the final corner. He's going to take it P2 for the Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. He knows he's done it. He weaves down the start-finish straight, and Crow gets his win here in Australia by some margin, but it wasn't enough for the asset. He had one little mishap in qualifying, and that's all it takes. He lost the positions, the benefit that he had following the qualifying ban. Tank gets Tomo just at the, well, gets Tomo because of the slight incident of his, as now Tank is spinning across the line. He loses front wing, crosses the line in P2, but will be enough currently to take the championship following any investigations that happen post race. So currently, though, your season 2 champion goes to the Racing Bull driver of Tank, and Tomo now crosses the line. A valiant drive, just spins up the wheels and loses out on that position to Tank. But a good battle, though, between these three up at the top. Flash crosses the line. George also crosses the line. Here comes the Asset as well. It is the final race of the season, so Asset knew he didn't have enough. Does score still, what's that, about 4 or 5 points? Well, hopefully it hasn't actually classed him as a DNF. No, it has recognised that he finished the race. There you have it. So not enough for Asset this time round, as Tank takes the championship, and it will be only by about 7 points is the margin. But Crow has been waiting to do a victory dance on the podium for a long time. Or a long time coming, at least. Only one win in the season. Now it takes his second as he goes on to top step here in Melbourne. We're, funny enough, the same place where Eddie Irvine and Jensen Button, the only other drivers to celebrate their maiden win here. Eddie Irvine with Ferrari back in 1999, and Jensen Button in the Brawn GP back in 2009, which was the same year he won the Drivers' Championship. But there you have it, your standings for the final race of the RAF F1 24 Esports Championship Season 2. Is Crow takes the win with the Scuderia Ferrari, with Tank claiming the championship battle in P2 for the VCARB. Buy one, get one free. Tomo, valiant fighting, ends up in P3. A mistake, just 3 laps to go, causing the wing damage. Then Flash crosses in P4. George in P5, losing out 1 position. These two swapping around. Then you got the Haas, Ben Tomlin, AtomicTristan, Golf Maniac. Then you have Big Melt, who had 1 slight little oopsie, and BomberBrown unable to reconnect, and his car driving in AI, so will not receive any points, but won't receive any points because he's in P11. But there you have it. Those are your top 10. And the Season 2 champion has been crowned.
What a season. What a season. What a race. Forget the race. What a season. It's been a mega little season, hasn't it? But I think even we had the 2-parter with the 2007 remake. We've had the randomizer. I think that's the best way to see out a Formula 1 game, as this game now comes to a close and we will have a new game to play with in around a month's time.
Yeah, I'm sure I can see some of the drivers now very quickly leaving and hitting the uninstall button, ready to download the pre-downloads or the pre-orders of the new game. If you get the Champions Edition, then you do get Lewis Hamilton as the front cover, which I will be getting at some point, but may need to wait until payday.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
But then again, I've got to save the money for Silverstone, so I think it might be EA Play Pro for me, just to spread the cost out a bit.
Yep. No, I can see that one, because yes, Silverstone is going to be a very expensive day and a very long day. As
it's already cost me $3,000.
Eesh. Yeah, I think we're. I'm not so that much, but yeah, it's still pricey, and we're only going for the one day. So,
I can't even have a beer with you. Oh.
Well, I mean, you're sat in Cops, aren't you?
No, I'm sat at Stowe.
Oh, you're sat at Stowe. Oh, because I'm at Chapel, so I get to see them go through Maggots Beckett's. I get to see them come out of Cops, over the hill, down into Maggots Beckett's, and I'm quite close to the front, so I get to see them as they hit the apex before they pick up the DRS onto the Wellington
I'm sure if you
Straight.
go to the concert I'm sure if you go down go to the concert afterwards, I'll see you.
Well, I think at this rate, it would take us a few hours to get out of there. But anyway, we're digressing massively. We are digressing slightly. But there you go, though. That is the conclusion, though, of the RAF F1 24 Esports Championship Season 2, the randomizer. Exciting battles going on. It finished in with a wet race and finished in style Crow with a dominant lead come the checkered flag, with Tank and Tomo both electing to go into the pits, replace a wing, and get fresher tyres. So that was a free pit stop there for Tank. We managed to get the asset in the end, the championship contender, but that little hiccup in qualifying was enough to put him at the back of the grid. And even with the qualifying ban from Tank, still wasn't able to capitalize on that one. So it's an unfortunate event for the drivers. And then also Tomo's little oopsie with 3 laps left to go. So definitely it's one of them seasons, isn't it, George? It's one of them seasons. It all happens.
Yeah.
Well, what can you do? I mean, I've still got the replay here. I should be able to reload the final replays. We flip that over and you can just see what happened to Tomo. Just gets onto the AstroTurf and into the barrier. That was very much a Jack Doohan-esque situation.
Yeah. That corner, it's that corner. It hit even the best drivers. They've crashed at that corner. We've seen it for many, many years. I think one that's vivid in my mind was Sebastian Vettel alongside one of the Saubers. I think 2009 they had an incident. First at turn 3, but then it carried on into that set of corners. It's a difficult set of corners, and when it's in the wet, it's even worse. So you've got to be very technical around there. Make sure you get your line right. If you don't get your line right, you're going to hit that AstroTurf. And obviously, in the dry, you get away with it a bit more. It's going to wear your tyre a bit more because obviously it's AstroTurf and it's plastic. And it, with the rubber, it's just going to shred it. But in the wet, because there's moisture there, and it's holding a lot of water that's more than the intermediate can hold. It's more of a wet, you probably have to use the wet tyres to actually find just that little bit more grip. It's going to spin, and then suddenly your back end decides, I want to go this way, and then you're in a wall.
Yeah, and that's how easy things can change. We can see that in the actual season, the actual F1, as the season goes on. They've just completed round 4 in Bahrain before moving next week to the Jeddah Corniche circuit in Saudi Arabia. There you go. I was trying to...
Saudi Arabia.
I was like, no, it's not Azerbaijan. It's the other one. I don't know why I keep mixing them up. But yeah, anyway, that is it. And that is the season come to conclusion. Tank takes the championship for the season 2. And, well, what more can I say? It's done. We can finally have a break.
Yeah, we can have a break. We can actually go and do some racing for once.
True.
I mean, you've had a busy season in the sense you've been away with training. Me, I've just been busy. In non-RAF world, I've just been busy. But I think when we come back for the next season, whenever that gets confirmed, we will be back in. Whether me and you will be racing, or whether we might have, if we have 2 leagues that happen, it could be us doing the main tier and another couple of people doing another tier. If that gives us both an opportunity to race, it still will be one hell of a season. I think Tank's got to start watching his back because there's going to be some fast people going to be sitting right on his rear wing before he knows it.
Indeed. But there you go. That is it. That is us wrapped up here in Australia. We started a few months ago, and now we are ending it right here. So with that one. Congratulations to Tank for the championship. Unlucky for Asset, commiserations, but still gets P2 in the championship. Crow takes the Constructors P2 for Ferrari. The Haas just not quite getting enough points to outscore Crow. But yes, well, unfortunately, what can I say? It's it. We've come to a close. So we're going to roll the intro one more time before we sign off. But with that, though, George, it is a good night from you.
And from Jack, it's a good night from you.
We'll catch you all maybe for the 2025 season in a couple of months' time, but keep out for further content that will definitely be put